Hey there, everybody. This is the Bones and Tub Show. We are brought to you by no one in particular, because advertisements suck.
Yeah, they do.
We are brought to you, however, by Catherine, Marie Doherty, Evelyn, and Agris Girl, our 3 patrons at patreon.com/bones and tubs. And we don't have, anything else. We're not trying to sell you a mattress. We're not trying to tell you anything about beard oil or...
No special food boxes or anything like that.
No.
We're brought to you, just like PBS, by viewers like you.
And this is the Bones and Tub Show.
The Bones and Tub Show.
And sets another day. Billions will kneel and pray. Anything to aid escape from the world so cold and gray.
And we're back with another episode of Bones and Tubs here on this supposedly the second day of spring. But
right.
God damn, there's 4 inches of snow on the fucking
I
ground
haven't got
today.
to tell anybody this on the podcast yet, but I'll say it now. I make the prediction that now that it's the spring after, the spring solstice, the spring equinox, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Vernal equinox, whatever it is.
It's now
whatever. We're all wrong.
Until May Day, we are in the blood sacrifice season, so I look for more blood violence and military action. That's my prediction.
Okay. And you're probably right. The vernal equinox was yesterday. Everybody didn't know it. Yeah. Happy.
Are you guys planning on doing any sacrifice for a bountiful reap? Or?
Oh, I made a sacrifice last night. Well, in a way.
Thinking about going down to Florida.
The blade in. I put the blade in the chalice.
Ha!
For a good spring.
Copy that.
I figured that's the best way to do it, right?
Since it's not May Day, I can still do it,
It's
right?
good.
As long as I say that it's a...
Well, let's put it this way.
Good.
Between now and May Day...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
I don't want to talk about it on the show because that's kind of personal.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like raw, but it's just raw dog. And
Right.
That's all it is.
Right.
I'm praying to Ishtar on this one.
Right.
Going back to the old ways.
I got you.
Speaking of which, I want to put a shout out.
I don't mind ketchup on my hot dog as long as it's a bun.
It's tight.
Yes.
Manly, I want to put a shout out there to the author who's been dead for like 50 years, but Manly P. Hall, I've been reading the shit out of your work for the last fucking
Shout out
5
to your
days.
skeleton, bro.
Yeah, shout out to the skeleton of Manly P. Hall.
Come on.
I'm getting another book from him. I'm really
I don't know
excited about
anything
getting
about
tomorrow.
this guy.
Holy
Oh,
shit.
Masonic author.
Yeah, he
Really?
wrote...
I never heard of Manly P. Hall. I think they talked about him in In-Game, Blueprint for Global Enslavement.
Really?
For free.
I just read The Lost Keys of Masonry. Amazing read. It's short, too. There's not much to it. Because there's a lot to do with Hiram Abiff. Ha! I got
Hiram
it.
Abiff.
Hiya, there it is.
Hiram Abiff, man. Yeah.
But,
Hiram above,
Come on.
But and I'm also getting another book from him, The Secrets of the Lost Ages.
Yeah.
It's a categorical encyclopedical knowledge of all the occulted orders.
Are you thinking about joining one of these occulted orders?
No, because Manly P. Hall put it out there. He said if you study the esoteric arts, the hermetic arts, the Kabbalah, the Rosicrucians, any of those.
Is the Kabbalah the same thing as the Kabbalion?
Yeah.
So
The Kabbalion by the 3 initiates.
I wasn't sure.
I know you guys were talking about at one point in time about joining one of these occulted orders.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Manly P. Hall has kind of turned my mind on it because he more or less said that if you're studying these, he more or less said you're already a Mason. He's like, if you're studying the esoteric order and you're already a Mason, he's like, in fact, if you're studying this, you're probably in a higher degree than a normal one, simply because you're not a lodge Mason.
Yeah,
you're a spiritual Mason.
You start reading some of these things and you observe certain people that are in your workplace or in your life that don't exhibit what you would consider to be like
the behavior that supposedly they call for.
Sought after behavior of a perfected human being. Right? They're like just porch masons.
This older gentleman I've been talking to recently, he just recently joined the Masons, and he's like, probably in his 60s. Late 50s,
No,
early
I'm not going
60s.
to discount him.
on Craigslist Mail for Mail or
No.
I'm not going to discount them.
I've known him for a long time. I don't want to throw him out there right now.
you can just throw it out there and we'll delete it.
But he...
tell us who it is so we know.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Why is he joining?
He just joined. He joined about. He's been in it for about a year now.
Wow.
Retired.
He is retired.
So you wanted to?
I think he had an accident a long time ago, and I think he's on disability. He got somebody. Long story short, somebody drove into his yard and hit him when he was outside drinking beer with one of his buddies. It's a freak accident.
Man,
is he trying to become one of the Illumined?
He's said he's about to get his 32nd degree already. He's only been in a year. But he goes to every fucking meeting, and he's obsessed with it.
what do you say about like the degree work as far as?
He said it's all a bunch of memorization.
That costs a lot of money, though, too. I don't know if I believe he's a 32nd degree Mason.
It doesn't really take that long to get to 32nd degree, though.
I mean, I guess if you're retired and
I guess
he's retired, he has no
I
life.
know nothing about it. I know that it's supposed to be
His life
expensive.
revolves around
Maybe he's a fucking
building
autodidact.
AR-15s and masonry.
maybe he's a boss. I don't know. I mean, I'm just casting dispersions. You know,
Does he
I mean,
seem
think
like
about it.
Has he
We're-
changed at all since he's joined? Do you think, as a human being, as a person?
I think he has. But when I was talking to him the other day, he was talking about a lot of like religious aspects of it.
does he drink a lot of beer?
No more than normal, I guess.
Like, what's normal? Like
Every time I see him, he might be drinking sometimes, but sometimes he's not. I mean, I don't see him that often, so I can't really
There I go, casting dispersions again.
I can't really
What am I doing?
make a statement on that.
Did he say what side he went? What right? Or
He had to
whatever?
go on the Scottish right because the York
Scottish.
right only goes to
Scottish right.
I think
goes
you can
to
do
10.
both, though. Also, I
You
didn't
can
know.
do both, but the Scottish right's the only one that goes to 33.
Right.
33.
Some people like to do both.
But
I
he
figured if I was retired and on disability, that's probably what I would
he was
do.
talking to me about like the religious part of it. And he's like, yeah, it's all like based off the King James version of the Bible, yada yada yada. I don't feel like necessarily he's
It's probably not
feeling it the same way that
picking up what they're laying down.
right. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. I don't feel like he's picking up what they're laying down.
That's fine.
Which I mean, you can get to 32nd degree and not pick up what they're laying down. That's why they have the higher degrees such as 33.
It must have been cool with crushing the symbolically crushing the papal tiara at degrees to 27.
You know what I mean?
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
just saying.
What I read on Google.
But I just thought it was interesting that he's old and he's just now getting into
It makes
it.
me feel happy that I'm so young and learning all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty interesting.
But now, it's
Occultic knowledge and what have you.
yeah,
I'm a big fan of the occult. If you can't tell.
yeah, huge fans.
You haven't been listening recently.
I've been listening.
It bit me.
I'm pretty
when
much
I was-
caught up with everything except for the recent one with Satan.
When I was in school, it bit me.
Speaking of occultic knowledge, Satan.
Yeah. I wish that heater would pump out some like campfire heat.
Yeah, right. Let's start a fire in here. That couch looks very combustible.
I'm so glad that it's spring.
If you caught the couch on fire, you won't be able to do casting couch. So
Yeah,
that
that's
would make
true.
me sad.
And by the way, I have finally put together the studio again. It looks nice again, nice and clean and presentable. You should have seen it the last few weeks. It's looked like a goddamn disgrace.
we would come into like an abandoned warehouse to record the podcast.
Like, I'm surprised there's not a hobo sleeping on the fucking floor. You know?
I went down to
Casting couch.
this park in Fairfield yesterday, walking around, and
Craigslist from out dogging.
there was I was walking around on one of the bike trails, and I found this log, and there was like the big ass log sitting there. Underneath the log was like a big hole dug out, and there was like tons of like those pull off lottery tickets you get out of the machine for like $0.25 a piece, and
Man.
beer cans, and like about 50 feet from the log was the river, and there was a small campfire built with like clothes laying there. Looked like some homeless person may have
Say that
been
or
living there for quite some time.
Ted's trying to hide his secret drinking and gambling problem from his wife, so he goes down to the river. He has to change his clothes because he doesn't want his clothes reeking of river and beer.
Right.
It's scratch ticket dust. So he changes his clothes while he sits out. That's the life he leads now because he doesn't want his wife to know.
Do you know why he lives that life? Because he has kids. Welcome to the order. I'm sorry, Dr. Doug heard it. He's on his way to having a baby. Everyone can scream in their car or their house or their bathroom or their gym, wherever they are right now. Congratulations, Dr. Doug. Can you hear it? Reverberating backwards through time like a tachyon.
It's pretty exciting.
Good times.
I'm excited for you because I want to see you sometime and you look at me like this with these eyes.
The
You know.
emptiness.
The dead tired, slightly,
never-
just constantly cyclically windburn eyes.
You've psychically put all of your energy into something else. Fully committed to it finally. I think that's what it is.
For your sake, I pray it's fucking twins or whatever number you guys want.
I wanted twins, but I don't think it's going to happen unless that little bastard's hiding in there somewhere.
I was going to say, is there a history of twins in either of your families?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. I was going to say, because usually you got to have a pretty definitive history of it.
Yeah.
Unless you're taking fucking fertility
drugs. And you have like 9 of them at one time.
Yeah, a litter of humans.
Right.
Things will just die.
We should just get into our topic.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I heard that, speaking of the topic, I was listening to the radio this morning on my way over here, and they were talking about that cat in Austin has officially blown himself up and killed himself.
The old school news article that I screenshotted the other day because I don't trust the media not to retract a story that they don't want out there.
Yeah, I've been doing that too because I feel the same.
How many 9/11 stories were there? Anyway, they had Austin bomber, and they kept posting pictures of black people. It was like I think it said Austin bomber launches third bomb, suspect being sought on security camera footage, and it showed 2 African Americans.
That's racist.
Right, but now they've changed it to a
white Christian
who was bombing prominent black families.
Apparently for no goddamn reason.
Well, he claims himself. He posted something on Reddit.
Did he claim it, or did the CIA say?
Allegedly, he posted on Reddit. I read this morning. I think it was on Drudge. He claimed that he was just randomly killing people, and he saw himself as more of a Zodiac killer type person with no.
Which
real
the thing
motive.
is, here's the thing. Now the Zodiac, and this is where I'm going to make a matter of contention.
Ted Cruz. You can just say his name.
Ted Cruz.
Fine, yeah.
Ted Cruz. You know, though his motive was like, he loved hunting people. He thought mankind.
The most dangerous
Ted
game.
Cruz thought, Ted Cruz thought that mankind was the most dangerous game of all, and he wanted to hunt them.
Ted Cruz is an apex predator.
You got to watch out for Ted Cruz.
Right. I heard Ted Cruz listens to Nickelback, too.
A lot of people that love hunting deer, or love hunting game in general. And I can only imagine the Ted Cruz comes in his pants every time he kills someone.
Can you imagine if Ted Cruz actually would have became president, how many random killings would have just occurred
I'm
because
glad
of
it's
it?
afternoon.
He would have passed.
They would have brought him into the
My grandpa
Oval.
would be pissed off if I was drinking before noon. Random statement.
Yeah.
It would just they would have brought people in the Oval Office and what am I doing here? And he's like, I'm gonna kill you now. And they're like, what? Nah, I'm gonna kill you. I could do that.
The Clintons. How many Secret Service agents did they kill? 1.
At least 3.
Okay, 3. So Ted Cruz would have killed all of them.
Yeah, he would have had a whole staff change every year. Yeah. God, I don't want to go to Ted's office. I don't want to go to Ted's office. Fucking the Oval Office has been turned. They blacked out the fucking windows and turned it into a goddamn abattoir. Yeah. There's a fucking. He shows up and he's got a fucking hood on with the fucking Zodiac symbol on it.
So another thing that I was reading, which has to do with what we're trying to talk about today, which was old Ted Kaczynski, my favorite mathematician.
Not Ted Cruz.
So we're talking about Ted Kaczynski today. If you didn't know it already,
the Unabomber.
So the Austin bombing and the explosive echoes of the Unabomber was what the article is trying to say. I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, because
they're trying to make the Unabomber out to be just like
there's so much bullshit.
They're trying to make him out to be this guy who had no fucking motive and he was just trying to kill people.
I mean,
for no reason.
He wrote a 58,000 word fucking manifesto. I don't like call it. He didn't even like calling it manifesto.
It was the Industrial Society in its future.
Yeah, let's call it what it is. It was the Industrial Society. It was an essay, right? So
you can actually read it on the Washington Post.
Where sometimes a serial killer or a murderer or a bomber will leave a couple notes here and there to give you some semblance of a motive.
Right.
He gave you a goddamn dissertation about why he did what he did.
I feel like that if this dissertation had been taken seriously in the first place, he probably wouldn't have bombed people. But the real problem was the fact that he was subjected to MK Ultra mind control.
By the psychologist Henry Murray.
Under the auspices of the U.S. government? Right?
Yes, yeah.
So basically the U.S. government caused the Unabomber.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, if you had been subjected to what he was subjected to, God knows what would have happened to you. I mean, you got to understand, just to break it down here, to give anybody out there listening an idea of what, because it's well documented. What I tried to find, you can't find it. I don't know why. It's occulted information that we won't know about. But they recorded, video recorded the interviews that they did with him back in the day. He was 16 years old.
Yeah,
you can't find him anywhere.
You can't even find.
They
interviewed him when he was 16.
He was
started when he was 16.
Why?
MK Ultra mind control.
Because he was at Harvard. He graduated high school when he was 15.
He went
to Harvard from
And he went to Harvard from there.
The only version of the MK Ultra story that you'll get is on the Netflix show Manhunt.
I didn't know he was that young.
Manhunt the Unabomber. Have you watched that on Netflix?
No, I heard
Very good
about
show.
it,
Very good show. Anybody that hasn't seen it, watch Manhunt the Unabomber on there. It's fucking amazing.
But they put out like some sort of note or something where everybody can see it on campus to come and take part in this class.
It was like they said it was a paid experiment for 3 years. They said 3 years.
So they go in and they take this test.
He was a youngster.
It shows everybody shows everybody in the classroom taking the test. And then they grade the results. They read off the numbers of people that made it or didn't make it, whatever.
Yeah.
And whoever didn't make it leaves, and they continue to test them because they're trying to narrow down, in my opinion, a genius that had like psychological or sociological issues that they could then fuck with or mold through the MK Ultra experiments, which is exactly what happened.
Do you think that this project went awry on them?
No, I think they just want to see what would happen.
Yeah, because and this is the other thing.
Like how the government involved airmen with.
You've read his essay. I mean, it's.
But the thing is, like, you got to take into effect the notion. Okay, so the other members of this experiment were at least 18 plus years old going into it. He was still young. He was a boy. He was a boy.
Yeah, just the boy.
And for a year. This psychologist who supposedly was supposed to be one of the best in academia befriended him and made him think that he was like his dude. Like they had a year of conversations where like he basically laid out his entire view of life to this man.
So
he made him feel like a genius. And then after the end of the interviews, they bring him in. And this is, like I said, the milquetoast. So who the fuck knows what they really did in MK Ultra study. But after he built this bond with this dude, the only person that he could talk to, an academic that took him seriously, that made him feel amazing.
Said he was crazy.
Yeah, basically said,
him and the panel of scientists went and talked about how his mom had wrote letters.
Gave him a fraudulent letter about how his mom said that he needed help and
he was a bedwetter and a piece of shit and all this.
And they brought all these professors in to sit in on this fucking shit and basically criticize him the entire time. And then they would watch videos of his conversations he had with them, and then they would fucking criticize the things he was saying in the videos. They call him a
fraud and say he took it from other people and he was an idiot.
How old was he when he decided to go live in the mountains by himself?
That was in 1970. He built the cabin in 1976 or 77. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That sounds about right.
And then, it was only supposed to be like a temporary, like not temporary, but it was like kind of his getaway. Like it was a place for him to go. Because then he moved back to Chicago to live, to like be around his brother and all that. And he was there for like a year and a half, 2 years. And his brother had to fire him because I guess he was kind of quasi getting ready to date this woman. And then she rejected him. And he started writing these dirty limericks all over the factory about this woman. So his brother fired him. And that's when he went. And I believe that was like in early 79, 80. He went and lived in the cabin permanently.
He did get he had a degree, right? I mean.
Oh, he had his PhD.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So what was he doing for his brother if he had a PhD in math?
Well, he went and tried to be a professor for a couple years after he got it. And he did have some success with that, but I think he just got...
He at like University of Berkeley or something?
He taught at Berkeley. He taught at, I want to say Minnesota. He taught at a few different universities, right?
Just like an adjunct professor, probably.
Yeah, more or less. And he did fairly well there, but he came into, like, he butted heads with other professors, and they also said he wasn't a very good teacher because he really wasn't he wasn't a very good teacher, but he was working on his studies. He was working on his work.
Yes.
Right? So they said he was a bad teacher because he more or less just read out of the textbook and all that stuff, which this guy, if you look at him now, being who he is, he probably would have been put on the spectrum somewhere because he had a hard time bonding with people. He had a hard time.
That's probably what the study for the MK Ultra thing was all about. They were trying to find somebody on the spectrum with autism that was a genius. You know what I mean?
More or less, yeah. Trying to find
what do you
somebody
think they were trying to accomplish.
Who the fuck knows?
I think it was a test and to see, like, say they this is what I think it broke it down to. Say they capture a spy, right? And then they sympathize with him.
Do you think they knew it was him that was in the bombings?
I wouldn't speculate on that. I don't think it was. Because, I mean, think about
when they found him, they were like, oh, well, that's probably why.
It makes sense.
No, more or less what happened was like if you watch Manhunt, they kind of, I mean, a lot of it is apocryphal, and it was just kind of like embellished and dramatized and all that.
He's the one that got away, I guess.
More or less, what they were trying to, they were grasping at straws because it kept thinking he was some sort of airplane engineer or something like that. He wasn't like,
right.
They were completely missing the mark on who he was, right? So, and a couple people were like, well, no, we think this guy's actually really, really smart, and he's trying to like convey something to us. And they said we need to try to find him through his work. He writes us he's constantly writing letters. He's constantly giving us information. We need to work off of that. And and that's why ultimately they decided to print the essay.
The Industrial Society and its Future.
Yeah. Well, I know originally
if you don't want to read it yourself, someone will read it to you.
His first bombing he conducted was who was it? It was some PhD professor guy. I can't remember his name.
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
Pull it up.
I got it right here.
I'm gonna go do a security check.
Initial bombing.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Buckley Christ, a professor of material engineering at Northwestern University.
Yeah, so he had some beef with him because why? What was the problem with him? Initially, I know that he packaged the bomb with a return address to that professor, and he got the package in his office, and he's like, "I didn't send a package."
He returned. He said it was on and returned it.
Yeah, it was a return. Yeah. It was a return address to him, and he's like, "I didn't send anything. This is very odd."
Yeah,
and like a security guard came and took it and opened it up and exploded on him and injured his hand. That was the first bombing.
So it was meant for Christ.
Right.
But he didn't end up with it because he was like, this doesn't make sense.
This doesn't make sense.
But, and that was his first bomb, though, so it was fairly primitive.
Right.
But then after that, it became more and more precise. You know what I mean? And it seemed like, okay, like I think I said this before the show, he didn't bomb or hurt or bomb people that were like the lead. Like he wasn't bombing like leaders of organizations or anything like that.
He was trying to get his message out.
He was bombing people who he thought represented what he thought was the problem.
I believe he even wrote the essay. Did he write the essay before the first bomb?
No, the essay didn't come out until the 90s.
That's when it got exposed.
Well, that's when he said, like, hey...
Because he wrote the essay and he sent it to, like, the New York Times and
He sent it to the New York Times and Washington Post and said, hey...
A whole bunch of other news organizations.
If one of you publishes this...
Then I'll quit doing what I'm doing.
I'll quit doing what I'm doing. So...
And they refused to do it.
Exactly. So... Well, at first. And then...
Well, they didn't publish it until they caught him.
But the FBI... No, they published it before they caught him. The FBI, they published it before they caught him because that's how they caught him.
Oh yeah,
because
sorry, his brother.
They said the linguistics. They said that his
brother read it and that was if somebody, that sounds like my brother.
Yeah, they said if somebody reads this who recognizes this form of like this way of writing, these sentiments, sees this, they'll be able to pin down who it is, and that's exactly what happened. His brother read it and said, "This is my brother."
Holy Jesus, this is my brother.
So, but here's the key in all that. Before they caught him,
I bet this is Teddy.
Here's the thing: David Kaczynski loved his brother. Even though they had fights and all that stuff, he loved his brother.
Not as much as he loved snitching.
But he did... Well, see, here's the thing. He did snitch, but he did it in a way that kept Ted Kaczynski from becoming another Ruby Ridge or a fucking Waco. He didn't contact the FBI at first. He contacted a lawyer, and then he contacted a private investigator. The private investigator went out and investigated Ted Kaczynski and basically saw this dude's fucking living in a goddamn shack out in the middle of nowhere, fucking making bombs and shit. Right?
Right.
So, then they contacted the FBI because he didn't want his brother to die. I understand that sentiment.
I know there was a bomb that he put on an airplane that
it didn't go off.
It didn't go off. It just popped smoke.
Yeah.
And that's where he got the name, the Unabomber. It was the University Airplane Bomber.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah.
I want to get into his work though.
Yeah, so I got
we had to do a little bit of history in case anybody wasn't unsure.
I just meant that's what I'm over here like rocking back and forth.
I ordered his book a long time ago when I first started reading about the Unabomber.
Okay, so the essay, Industrial Society and Its Future, the essay by Theodore Kaczynski, mathematician, and
by FC technically,
quote unquote, by FC Freedom Club.
Yeah.
Theodore Kaczynski, mathematician and Unabomber. So, boys, what do you think?
Well,
Let's do it.
It makes a lot of sense if you read it.
And
There's
the
really
thing
only
is,
one
you're not
thing.
alone in that thought. Most scholars have read this and thought, this is not the work of a fucking madman. This
That's
is the
why
work of a goddamn genius.
I'm excited to share the link to the
Washington Post article.
red. Well, I'm gonna share both, but I think most people probably just hit YouTube because they'd rather listen to it.
Oh, yeah. But they should definitely read it.
Read it, listen to it, consume it, because
It's very interesting.
you will be shocked about how much of this that you hear, and you're like,
Especially today, and especially in modern society.
right. He predicted, basically, he was just writing out what was going to happen. He wasn't trying to be like a Nostradamus or that type of cat.
He really hated the left.
But he did predict the future. I feel
he
like.
condemned the conservatives as well.
He condemned the conservatives as well, but most of the essay is condemning leftists.
Yeah, because if you read it,
By
understand
leftist,
what he's
he doesn't
condemning about
necessarily
it.
mean like leftist, as in like he doesn't condemn liberals. He condemns the leftist mindset. And by the leftist mindset, he means people who basically want to have control of all society and want to create rules and laws.
Basically says that they have absolutely nothing going on in their own lives, right?
Right.
And that they're so...
Can I see that real quick?
They're
Yeah.
so low, and they hate themselves. What did you say? That the commonality with all leftists is self-hatred.
Yeah, he
hate
says that
They can't
he breaks
see
it down
themselves.
into
Feelings of inferiority.
exactly.
Right.
That's where it all leftism sends to as he feels it. You guys keep talking. I'm going to find a passage real quick that I liked.
Well, there's a ton of them in there, so good
Yeah.
luck with that.
Yeah. Try to find just
he
one.
he had a lot of hatred towards the leftist, not necessarily the left, but leftist. His big thing was that he writes about in the essay is about the way the human psyche works, and he's got a huge passage in there about this thing he calls the power play, where we all have this idea where we want to be in control of our own lives and what have you, and leftists are taking that power away from us.
Well, that and the industrial society itself
He
completely,
blames the industrial society for it.
completely
Okay.
robs us of all
This
of our
is-
autonomy.
This is what I wanted to look at. It was paragraph 11, subtitle Feelings of Inferiority. When someone interprets as derogatory almost anything that is said about him or about groups with whom he identifies, we conclude that he has inferiority feelings or low self-esteem. This tendency is pronounced among minority rights advocates, whether or not they belong to the minority groups whose rights they defend. They are hypersensitive about the words used to designate minorities. The term Negro, Oriental, handicap, or chick for an African, an Asian, a disabled person, or a woman originally had no derogatory connotation. Broad and chick were merely the feminine equivalents of guy and dude or fellow.
Right, but keep going because it says in there that all the derogatory sense was brought about by the activists themselves.
Yeah, he
They're the
blames
ones
them.
that made him derogatory.
Oh, yeah, is the next line.
Yeah.
That's why I knew I was onto something.
Yeah.
The negative connotations have been
read this, like,
attached
4
to these
times,
terms
so.
by the activists themselves.
You're learning to make bombs.
Some animal rights advocates have gone as far as to reject the word pet and insist on its replacement by animal companion. Leftist anthropologists go to great lengths to avoid saying anything about the primitive peoples that could conceivably be interpreted as negative. They want to replace the word primitive by non-literate.
They're basically just trying to join groups, or not say join groups, but champion groups.
But he blames it all on the power process, though, because he says they're doing this in order to gain power and control in their own lives
Right.
because they have none.
They hate
because
themselves
of the industrial society.
and they feel weak.
Oh, okay,
Right.
I got. Okay, this is the line I was actually looking for in all reality. Those who are most sensitive about politically incorrect terminology are not the average black ghetto dweller, Asian immigrant, abused woman, or disabled person, but a minority of activists, many of whom do not even belong to any oppressed group, but come from privileged strata of society.
It
Right.
comes. It echoes of today's society where
Oh,
they
for
say
sure.
that voter ID laws are racist. Well, that in itself is racist as fuck because you're saying that blacks and minorities aren't smart enough or capable enough to go get an ID.
Well, that's the underlying thing.
That's
is
the most racist shit in the fucking
they
world.
believe and promulgate all of the racist ideas
Right.
themselves, and then they want to impose their guilt on someone else or another group of people in order to feel powerful.
Right.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. But yeah. And just to say this, just before we go any further, because I feel like we haven't really said it, but you kind of have to say it. I like his ideas.
Yeah.
I like him to the point where I think he was completely and utterly onto something.
Right.
And the unfortunate part about the entire thing is that
He took it a little too far.
he felt in his mind that the only way he was going to get the attention he needed to get this message out there was to bomb people.
Now, there's two ways that I want to look at this real quick. One way is that he went about it the wrong way. True. Right?
Yeah.
He went about it the wrong way. But, and this is speaking from 2018, which is the future, where you can't get anybody to look up from their Farmville or whatever it is they're fucking around with. Bejeweled, some nonsense on their phone.
Bubble Bitch Saga.
Right. I mean, they're staring at their phones. It's harder now. So that's what I was kind of thinking about with this Texas bombing thing.
I was hoping it'd be something similar.
Maybe it's somebody that's trying to break somebody out of their sleep by bombing random people to get their message out. No, it was just some fucking piece of shit.
Some crazy.
Or
for as far as we know.
But would it made it? But
the fuck knows?
At the end of the day, when it comes to the bombing, would it made it any better that he had a message? Because is that the unfortunate thing that some people think that they have to go as far as to kill people and bomb people to get a message across?
If he had never bombed anybody, I wouldn't have had this writing in my possession, though.
Right.
No one would have known about it.
But that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be. That should be something, like in all reality, in a fucking mirror world, in a parallel universe, there is a celebrated.
Don't tell me they didn't read this shit. You know they read it and they were like, we can't let this shit get out.
But there is a celebrated.
Don't fucking publish it.
Somebody published a letter that he wrote, because I guess he does correspondence from prison, because he's still alive.
Yeah.
But he said that the government changed his manifesto, and for an actual copy, just write him and he'll send you one.
I heard that too. We should write him. The Bones and Tub should write him.
Well, you're right.
Yeah. So
I want an actual copy. Didn't he write books too?
He wrote, his what he considers
a lot of time in prison.
His magnum opus.
Oh, yeah.
Let me pull up the title of it. I actually probably would intend on buying it eventually.
He got 8 consecutive life sentences or something like that.
I'm still stuck in.
What if he has 8 heart attacks and dies 8 times? Will they let him out? Is that? I mean, come on. They release fucking child molesters with 130 life sentences consecutive on technicalities.
That's fine.
Because we don't give a fuck about people that rape kids.
Right.
But fuck anybody that's trying to challenge the system.
Have you guys got to the part in the book, or in the essay rather, where he talks about how to fix the problem?
Yeah.
He has a solution.
It can't be fixed by
His solution
reform.
is it can't be fixed.
Well, it can't be fixed by reform. It can be fixed by revolution.
Right. But he says that what will basically happen, the only way to fix the issue is that society will collapse.
Yeah, it's just
based on these ideas. This is a matter of time.
He said it's better that it happens sooner than later.
Right. He says after society collapses over a period of time, people will forget how to make refrigerators or how to do this or how to do these modern technological things that we love and cherish today.
And even if they remembered, where are they going to get Freon?
Right. And that's how the reform will happen.
Technological slavery. That was his. That's what he considers his magnum opus. That's his great work.
The only thing that I have trouble understanding, I understand what he means, because we are slaves to the system, technologically, or even, you completely leave out the authoritarian government that we're dealing with, regardless of left or right, whoever's in power.
Well,
this is
when he talks about leftists, he talks about conservatives and liberals.
Right. The technological problem, though, is apolitical. It doesn't have a politics.
Right.
It's just the fact that we're giving up our autonomy and our ability for technology, for ease.
And I think one of the best allegorical things, like in the show Manhunt, the thing that I think wraps it all together is the main FBI investigator who kind of in the show goes off the rails because he's trying to find him and he's learning more about him and stuff like that. And he kind of agrees with him to an extent. He's talking to the Unabomber and he's saying, I was at a stoplight the other night. There was no traffic. I was the only one out there. And I sat there and looked at the red light. Nobody around. Why was I stopped?
Right.
Why was I stopped at this light?
Because the system said so.
Exactly.
And
there's nobody around. There's nobody even around to enforce the law. He's by himself.
But he's still doing it because he's not autonomous.
Right.
You might think you're autonomous.
What does he say? Does anybody remember the quote about what it requires to hold a job?
Obedience.
Yeah. Obedience and a mild amount of intelligence.
Yeah, a mild amount of intelligence and obedience. That's all you need to hold a job.
Basically, in order to, the technological society in itself gives us these jobs.
If you don't hold a job, then you're a piece of shit.
You can't buy the newest
society's
TV
eyes
or the newest phone.
But the way he's looking at it is another perspective where he's like, if you're not holding a job, it's because you're not being obedient to society, and it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person.
No, for sure. But
because you're trying to be autonomous on your own and not towards society.
To have a job is to give up your autonomy to buy baubles
and trinkets.
largely.
Yeah, largely.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is on something.
The whole thing with depression too, and anxiety, the
He
way he
blames it
breaks
all
that down,
on
it's
the
all
industrial
because of the
society.
industrial society, right?
He blames it all on our lack of the power process and our lack of autonomy.
Well, what was that bit about surrogate
Activities.
Surrogate activities.
Well, he says that some people can perfectly thrive using surrogate activities. And by surrogate activities, he means like you have to fulfill that power process.
That because you don't have to
basically.
worry about shelter, food,
Right.
clothing, or anything else, because those things have already been readily available and you don't have to worry about them anymore.
You find surrogate activities to fulfill that power process,
Yeah.
which can include like maybe like you're like a superstar track runner and you want to like beat your own time, or maybe you're like really good at like woodworking in your shop and you have like some goals that you're trying to set aside for yourself.
Things that have nothing to do with survival.
But he says that the vast majority of people are not able to simply thrive on surrogate activities.
Hence depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
bipolar.
All those
It's
things.
funny because I wish I could see the actual quote and read it, but to paraphrase, he talks about antidepressant drugs. He's like, basically they've created these antidepressant drugs to give to a man to make bearable an unbearable life. Like an unbearable life is brought about by the technological society. So in order to make these men or women live through it, we have to make the unbearable bearable.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep.
Definitively.
Smoke a joint. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Do whatever you want to do.
You're fucking grown.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm all about revolution. Political revolution. Apolitical revolution. You know?
Just a societal upheaval.
I'm done with the prison planet.
Do you feel like that he's on the side of natural law when it comes to things?
Definitively.
Until, you know, and this is just me trying to put him in a box to where he's like the perfect, you know, ideologue.
Right.
I would blame MK Ultra on making him violent in the way that he sent out bombs. But he says something in the manifesto that I don't agree with, where he says that no amount of consciousness can override genetics, which is completely backwards of what I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's
yeah.
exactly the opposite of that. I think if you seek consciousness and you research, you know, the occult, and you do your best to expand your consciousness, your genetics can't hold you back.
I think he's
Right.
in all reality, like where we ride in the levels of stoicism and whatnot, being able to control. He more gears towards. I'm not going to say that he's not an Epicurist, definitively, but he is. I think he's
Define Epicurus for the listener.
Epicureanism. It's kind of out of favor now. It kind of came out of favor eventually, but it was the rival to Stoicism in its time. The notion that, in all reality, if you break it down, God didn't want you to feel pain, so you should only feel pleasure. Nothing should ever be pursued that would bring on pain.
So it's basically like an older school version of the New Age movement.
It more or less rides into hedonism, more or less. But and challenge me on it. Anybody that's listening that wants to
Change my mind.
change my fucking mind.
To quote a
But-
common meme.
But to take Stoicism one more step, you go into cynicism, which in the modern vernacular
don't
means
think-
someone who's negative. But actual cynicism in its philosophical stance took Stoicism to its next level. See, the thing is, but I don't necessarily agree with cynicism.
What's
Right.
cynicism exactly?
Cynicism is the notion that, like, you have to shirk all these preconceived notions of how to act in society and stuff like that. And, like, how, like, you're supposed to, like, walk down the street, you know, in clothing and be nice to everybody.
Gotcha.
When why don't you just act how you feel?
Yeah.
So, like,
Why do you have to
cyn-
put
People do that, they're perceived
cynics
as
were,
crazy, though.
exactly. Even in Greek times, cynics were kind of considered off the rails.
So that's what the
because-
old term, like, old people that are, like, cynical.
Yeah.
Because they finally
But
were
that's
like,
a negative connotation that's been put on the word. I
Right.
don't necessarily agree with cynics. I think they just take it a step too far because their notion is like, why do I have to put on airs for the rest of society? Why do I have to do all these things? Why have these? He's like, more or less, they feel like to the extent where like their notion is like, why do I have to wear clothing if I'm in a house? Like, aren't
With
the
you, bro.
aren't the
You
four
don't have
aren't the
to wear
four aren't
clothing
the
in a
four
house.
walls my clothing?
Right.
Like, cynics were known to like sleep in bathtubs on the streets of Athens and shit
Listen,
like that. Like, they
I
were
slept in a
remorseless
bathtub
hobos.
Before. It's not comfortable.
No, it's not.
But they took stoicism to its literal extreme.
Yeah.
The next step in
I
stoicism.
like the idea that you shouldn't have to wear a mask, but society, maybe you could blame it on the industrial society and or its future, but I think the only way to survive and even thrive in the current system is to have a subtle art of manipulation.
But the
You
thing
have
is,
to have a mask for every different scenario.
like cynicism to me was like certain aspects. It was a mixture of Epicureanism and Stoicism in the sense that like a cynic was like, why? Like, because as far as they were concerned, pleasantries, acting nice to people, and doing all those things when you, as far as they believed, you truly didn't want to. You just wanted to be who you truly felt inside.
Yeah, but
That doing those things was like a yoke of slavery, right? When in reality, I
but
think,
how does that go along with the
but
whole "don't do to others what you don't want done to you"?
see, that's where I think they begin to violate it.
yeah.
Because if everybody went around the world acting like
Then you would violate
philosophical
everyone
cynics,
else's.
they would be violating other people's rights of natural law.
Right.
So that's where I think cynicism goes wrong, and I think Ted
you have
Kaczynski more rides in the realm of cynicism than he does stoicism.
Yeah.
He took stoicism to the next step, except unfortunately it meant interfering with other people's lives.
I would
Right.
like someone that's not involved in any way, shape, or form in a profession or a job where this could conflict to write him and provide him with whatever payment he requires in order to get his actual manifesto. Because I want to read what he claims is his real work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
See what they took out.
And the thing we talked about the other day that kind of has been tossing around in the tumbler of my brain, you can't find the Unabomber's manifesto on Audible. Right?
You can find it on the Washington Post.
You can find it on the Washington Post.
you
But
feel
the
like
reason
reading.
why they won't post it as an audiobook is because it's copywritten somewhere. Who has the copyright?
Yeah, we talked about that the other day. Is I want to know who the fuck has the copyright
This
to the
book
book.
is published.
Right, but what does it say about a copyright? Because he wouldn't want it copywritten. It was freely available information.
Oh, it says the Unabomber Manifesto, Industrial Society and its Future, no copyright, 1995. But this is published
But you
in
can't
95.
find it. You
Right.
can't. Normally, you can't find it public domain. You have to find it on a.
It
on
should
a-
be public domain.
You know, you used to be able to read it on Wikipedia. That was the first time I read it.
Hey,
The
but you can't-
The
you
very
can't
first time I
anymore.
read it was on
It's not on there
Wikipedia.
anymore.
Someone
And they took it off.
Someone
Right.
disputed
Because-
it and said it wasn't
yeah,
public
exactly.
domain, which doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's
He
the
never
system fighting
wanted.
back
He
against
never wanted.
Some way,
If
shape, or
it
form.
like, and here's the thing: as an author,
This was written before he got caught.
Like, here's the
or
thing.
not written, but this was published before he got caught.
I can say this because I am a published author, right?
Written and published.
Written and
Before you
published.
got
Okay, I'm a published author, right? So this is what I'm going to say about the whole copyright thing. Okay, granted, I want to make money off my work.
You should. It's the fruit of your labor.
But the thing is, if I was Ted Kaczynski and say I wrote something that I wanted everybody to see, I think I have the right. And the thing is, the reason they say it's not public domain is because under copyright rule, he's still alive. So technically, they can't just put it everywhere. It can't be public
But
domain,
he wants
right?
to be public domain.
But and that's the thing.
He
should
called
have
for
a
that.
he should have a right. He should have a right to say it's public domain, but he doesn't because
should
it's
be-
copyrighted.
There should be some kind of thing that's just as powerful as a copyright law, where you can say free domain copyright. I hold the copyright to the fact that it's free domain. No one else can take this through any form of law or maritime.
But he
nonsense.
doesn't.
Right.
He doesn't. And that's the thing that doesn't make sense. As an author, that fucking disturbs me. Because if I wrote something that I wanted everybody to see, the first thing I would do is relinquish my copyright so that it could be public domain.
Well,
then
this
someone else
motherfucker, he
would
probably
fucking take
doesn't
the
have.
copyright and sell it.
If there is a copyright on it now, there probably has nothing to do with it. I mean, this motherfucker lives in probably an octagon-shaped cell.
I wonder if he's in like General Pop or if he's
Oh,
in
no,
segregation.
no. This place, do you want me to look up I know the place he's at.
I've looked it up before, but
Did
tell
you
me.
say his only like access to
gonna
natural
smoke
light
one of these.
is a hole in the ceiling?
It's a hole in the ceiling so he can't tell where he's at.
It's like a super
so he's not even in.
future version of the Amish
It's in
prison.
He's
Colorado.
basically in a hole
Yeah, all the time.
all the time.
Right.
Fuck
23-hour-a-day lockdown.
you. Eat a dick.
I don't think this is just me shooting from the hip, but I fully and firmly believe that if he hadn't been subject to the mind control MK Ultra program, he wouldn't have bombed those motherfuckers. I think he was just a misunderstood genius.
So you think that maybe it's possible that he would have found another way to get his message out there without killing people?
Right.
Okay, he's at the United States Penitentiary
think so.
Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence. It is a facility in Colorado.
Yeah, ADX is pretty hardcore lockdown, isn't it?
That's where like the worst of the worst
Isn't that where
are kept.
what's his nuts was?
The Boston bombers there.
I was going to say
basically it's the who's
the
who.
Oklahoma bombing guy was there too.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
it's the who of domestic terrorists, more or less.
Yeah.
Or foreign terrorists. They have foreign terrorists there. They have domestic terrorists there. They have a whole bunch of people.
Yard wreck.
Yeah, come on.
There's no yard wreck there, is
I
there?
wonder if there's dicks being sucked.
They
in
have
there.
double agents from the
there are.
from the
I mean,
U.S. government.
How can there be? I wonder if they. Do you think they have Airmark?
You mean double agents, like
Sure.
people who are in prison, but they're really a fucking agent, or they're like working for the government?
They were supposedly working for the government, but they were
They're getting
working.
a complete
They
deal.
were working for another government.
Patsies. There's probably some patsies in there too. I would imagine.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
People that were promised all
Timothy
these
McVeigh
things and then they were
was
just
probably in there.
forgotten.
Some mob guys. There's some mob guys in there. Some gang affiliated individuals. Aryan Brotherhood gang leader Thomas Silverstein's in there.
Silverstein. No,
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Typical.
I'm
You're gonna
just
have to
throwing
cut that out. You know that,
That's
right?
fine. I'm just saying. We're just talking. You know.
I'm just letting you know.
You don't have to. I'm the one. You know.
That's
I'm
a name, isn't it?
What's that guy's name in the Matrix where he's like, I don't even see the code anymore. I just see blonde, brunette, redhead.
Yeah.
That's me.
It's like last week's episode with fucking Satan himself. Fucking, he'd like to term out the gays about
I left it in
15
there.
times. You know, it's whatever, because that's just him. And he wasn't really like knocking on them or anything. He was actually complimenting them on their ability to change a neighborhood.
I listened to it twice, and that's how I was able to leave it in there because even though he was like, you got all these gays.
I need to listen to it.
It's a good one.
Good.
I'm sitting here like the whole time cringing.
Yeah.
Like,
You looked uncomfortable. I was curious. I thought I had upset you somehow.
no.
I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is. I do want to get his true Unabomber manifesto. I can't even call it that. I want to get the true copy of the Industrial Society and its Future.
Say, yeah, he
and I
didn't
want
like
to read his book.
He didn't like the title, the Unabomber Manifesto. That was just kind of brought on him.
Everybody, I always do these calls to action. Everybody should check it out. You can read it for free. You can listen to it for free. It's on YouTube. I don't know who that is calling me. Not important. Yesterday, Elmo called me 8 times in a row, and I kept hitting in because I was trying to put my son to sleep, and I didn't recognize the number.
Nice.
But we'll talk about that later.
I think it's about time to wrap this up.
Do we have time for wangs?
Oh, we have
like
times
to
for
eat
wanks,
some,
and then I
yeah.
gotta bounce. I got a doggy appointment to get to.
Get that dog feeling right.
Yeah, man.
I gotta
you don't
get
wanna
her.
have your dog feeling bad.
Yeah, but
So, I mean, I guess in closing, this guy isn't necessarily a psychopath.
I
Crazy.
don't think
He's not
a
evil.
psychopath. No.
he's not evil.
He may have
Misguided.
misguided.
Yes.
Yes,
Motherfucker was
exactly.
psychically tortured, and he was already on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend reading his piece of work.
Yeah, anybody out there, unfortunately, you're going to have to look it up probably as the Unabomber Manifesto. I rolled my eyes like 6 times saying it.
I
you
watched
type it in,
I
it's
thought
a-
he was having a seizure.
If you
Yeah.
type it in, it's the first link that comes up is the Washington Post has got the whole essay.
Yeah, as I say, you can just look it up. It's not technically public domain, so you have to look at it on a regular website, or you can listen to an audio version of it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really
we highly
easy to
suggest
read.
it. I'm not even joking, everybody. It's very revealing, and I would suggest it to anybody.
It is.
You
And it
know,
will make
just
you question a lot of things as far as
forget-
like what you thought it was.
First of all, forget who wrote it, forget the history behind it, just read it,
yeah.
and then take it from there.
Get rid of the mind control.
Okay?
Just take it in for what it is.
We'd like to thank you all for listening. We'd like to thank Dr. Doug Hurdy, I should say, for coming back on the show
Smoking
and being a guest on the
cigarettes,
show. We love having
cashing
him on the
checks.
show.
What have you?
He's a great expert to have on the show. We'd like to thank you all for listening. We'd like to thank Ryan Simpson for letting us use his music on the show. We'd like you to check out our Facebook, Instagram, our Patreon, our website.
For just $1 a month, you can save us from the yoke of slavery.
Yeah. Don't you want to be like
/bones and tubs.
abolitionists? Don't you want to free us?
If you like what we're doing, I mean, at least share it, Share it with a friend. Our podcast downloads have been going up and up and up and up and up and up.
Have you guys noticed any like influxes since you changed the RSS feed?
Yeah, there's a definite like dip.
Is it better? I'm sure there's a dip when you change.
we're
because people couldn't find it.
catching back up. It was growing crazy, and now it's back on growth.
Do you feel like lots of people who were listening to it perhaps lost contact with you and now they're back on track?
Yeah, they were searching for a way. Just as I
And we're
was.
getting more and more people. I tell you, Instagram is a great way to get in touch with people and to contact, like to get our message out there. Because I feel like at least once or twice a week, we get contact from somebody like, "Hey, this shit's fucking good." Or we get those at least once a month. We get one of those individuals who takes it upon themselves to just fucking marathon our goddamn material.
Yeah. Beast.
And just fucking beast mode it for like fucking 2 weeks straight. Like, and we're just like,
we need to have him on. I know you're listening.
Unicorn Killer?
Unicorn Killer.
Yeah.
I know at one point in time when you guys switched RSS feeds, I had an issue trying to find it on Stitcher.
Well, that's my fault because I don't know
I still can't find it on Stitcher.
I don't know how to do. I haven't updated the Stitcher feed. I don't know how to do it.
Well,
I've tried.
I can take care of that.
I
Beyond Pod
appreciate
and
it.
other
The reason
outlets.
why it's on Beyond Pod and any other one that you could find on our podcatcher is because it piggybacks off of iTunes.
Yeah.
iTunes is a simple fix. Stitcher is not a simple fix. At least for me, I'm kind of autistic.
That's fine.
But I'm going to go ahead and try to fix that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. But let's thank y'all for listening, and we hope you tune in next time.
We'll be back next week with some blue topic.
Ooh.
Blue.
Watch out.
We love you.
We really do.